Answers program. What kind of Bible question do you have? What subject is of concern to you? Well, this is a program designed to offer you the opportunity to call in and ask questions or comments relating to the Bible. Our host and Bible teacher, Chris McCann, will respond by going to the Bible, the infallible Word of God. Our program is hosted Monday through Friday beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Sundays, it begins at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Call our toll-free number at 888-969-9883. Again, that's 888-969-9883. There will be someone there to answer your call and give you simple instructions to be on the program. You can also join through Zoom video by going to ebiblefellowship.org and clicking the icon at the top. If you're calling in from another country, select the International toll-free button to find your country's number.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to eBible Fellowship's new open forum program. During this time, we're going to open up the phone line to take your call, and each person is invited to give us a call if you have a question or a comment about the Bible, and I'll try to respond by going to the Bible, which is the holy Word of God. It is His divine revelation, the only divine revelation in existence, nowhere else, despite many claims, only one source of divine revelation in this world, which is the Bible. And of course, that makes the Bible unique among all books and the greatest of things that are in the world, and it lives up to it. A lot of times you'll hear of something, and the more you find out about it, the more disappointing it is. Not the case with the Bible. The more one looks into it and searches it and finds information about it from the Bible itself, the more fascinating, the more the more it proves itself, the more it confirms all that has been said about it, and then some. It is what it proclaims to be, a book that is given to us by God, that God himself is the author of. He is the writer. Yes, he used prophets, he dictated to them, but it's from him. It's from his mind, it's from his mouth. And so when we open it and read it, it is in actuality God speaking to us. The God that made us, the God that made all things, almighty, infinite, everlasting God, speaking directly to the reader every time that book is open. And so, of course, we have a program like this. We have a program where we want to ask questions about it and see what we can discover, what more we can learn about it. It's the most obvious reaction to such a glorious book is to have programs like this. All right, well, why don't we get started by going to our first caller tonight. Welcome. to our question and answer program. Please go ahead with your call.
Can you hear me, Chris?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Please go ahead.
All right, Chris, the four watches, can they be a spiritual picture of the four dates, 88, 94, 2011, and 2033? And I'll take my answer off there.
Well, in Genesis, when Joseph reveals himself to his brethren in Genesis 45, we find three dates are revealed. It says in Genesis 45, verse 1, then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And then he wept aloud. The Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Then when he's convinced them that, in the process of convincing them that he is Joseph, their brother, who they sold away, and he became a slave in Egypt. Imagine the shock when you have sold your brother, and obviously a life of slavery is one of the lowest rungs on the ladder as far as human society goes. And now you find out that same brother is Lord over Egypt, the greatest power in all the world at that time, and he has full authority over you. They were stunned beyond belief. But of course, the picture is Joseph's the type of Christ in the world, and his brethren, his father Jacob, still in Canaan, still in the church. And so the 7-year famine in Joseph's day, that God gave Joseph understanding concerning Pharaoh's dreams. The Lord gave Pharaoh the dreams and Joseph the understanding to interpret them. That 7-year famine is called Great Tribulation in Acts chapter 7. The same Greek words, same two Greek words that are translated Great Tribulation. The wording is slightly different in Acts 7, but the two Greek words are the two words of Matthew 24 translated Great Tribulation. So the 7-year famine typifies the Great Tribulation in our day that we know began May 21, 1988, concluded May 21, 2011, full 23 years, exact 23 years. And there was a dividing point after 2,300 evening mornings, September 7th, 1994. So understanding that, we had those three main dates. And so we were informed by God, by Christ, just as Joseph is informing his brethren, the duration of the Great Tribulation. And when the Great Tribulation concluded, that was Judgment Day beginning for the world. And here Joseph tells his brothers, Genesis 45, verse 6, for these 2 years hath the famine been in the land. And we also know the very year this has taken place, because they'll soon go back, get Jacob. Joseph will send wagons, and they will come out of Canaan not long after this is taking place, his revealing of himself to his brothers. And Jacob and all Israel will enter Egypt in 1877. Therefore, when Joseph tells them 2 years has the famine been in the land, the famine began 1879. That's the first date. Now it's after 2 years, 1877. That's the second date. That's a second date, and it will prove to be, very significant and a dividing point, because it's going to be the year they leave Canaan, go to Egypt, and live in Egypt, nourished by Joseph. So that's two dates, 1879, 1877. Then he says, and yet there are 5 years in which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. 5 years from 1877, 1872. The famine will conclude in 1872. And those are the three dates. And we can understand 1879 to 1872, beginning of pointing to the beginning of the tribulation, 1872, the end of the tribulation, and Judgment Day. Judgment Day, immediately after the tribulation, Matthew 24:29, comes Judgment Day. And so these are the three dates we have known for some time. We knew it leading up to May 21, 2011. We knew 1988. We knew 1994. And the latter rain, when the first part of the famine, the 2,300 grievous evening mornings concluded in the Jubilee year 1994. The latter rain began, and then we knew May 21, 2011, the Lord revealed that would be Judgment Day after the Great Tribulation was over, then the transition judgment on the world. Now, here, God does not get into the timeline for Judgment Day. And keep in mind that we had learned it would be 5 months. We assumed it would be a literal 5 months. And Mr. Camping saw, well, May 21 to October 21, 5 months on the calendar, 153 days seemed to work out so perfectly, but it was incorrect as far as a literal 5 months was concerned. The 5 months figure was to be understood spiritually. And now we are looking to the year 2033 for the conclusion of the prolonged day of judgment. And that's not found here, but the caller is asking about the 4 watches. And I don't think the 4 watches, could it be related to these 4 points? And I don't know. I don't know. Well, the 3 points here and a 4th, which would be the very end of the world, if biblical evidence proves correct in the year 2033. I don't know. I don't know if it is pointing to these, what would be 4 dates. I think that where the Bible says, well, whether he come in the second watch or come in the third watch, watch ye therefore, and we have other references regarding his coming. And if we look at it one way, we know God likened the day of salvation to a 12-hour workday. Christ said, are there not 12 hours in the day? He said in John 9 that I must do the works of him that sent me while it is day. And in John 6, verses 28 and 29, this is the work of God that ye believe. Christ in John 9 is stating he must do the work of God that ye believe, that is the work of salvation, while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. And in the parable of the workers in the vineyard, they're hired at intervals of 3 hours, and then at the 11th hour they hire a last group that breaks the pattern of hiring at 3-hour intervals. The 6th hour, the 9th hour, and at the last hour, it's the 11th hour, and we're told it's the last hour. We're even told at the end of the day, when equal pay is given to every one of them, that they have worked 1 hour. And it's said there, well, you're giving them equal pay and they've only worked 1 hour, and we who have borne the burden and heat of the day worked far longer. That tells us there was a 12-hour day, because they were hired at the 11th. They worked 1 hour, 12 hours, or are there not 12 hours in the day? And I believe you can find that statement Christ made about 12 hours in the day in John 11. And that is pointing to the day of salvation. And the day would begin 6 a.m., conclude 6 p.m. 6 p.m. And it's interesting how on the date of May 21, 2011, Mr. Camping had been working out when will Christ come, and settled on finally 6 p.m. 6 p.m. So spiritually, that's what time Christ came. At the end of the day, the spiritual day, of course, the spiritual day lasted centuries, even thousands of years. But at the end of the 12-hour workday, the day of salvation came even. The night comes, no man can work. They stop work for the day. And it is at that point Christ came like a thief in the night, and he brought judgment on the world on the very day that he had foretold and revealed to his people, had his servants proclaim May 21, 2011, Judgment Day with certainty. For if the trumpet give an uncertain sound, who will prepare themselves for the battle? And it was trumpeted all over the world back then, and people were very anxious and fearful. And I believe it may have been 6 p.m. In New York, where the news media had gathered, and they were looking, this is the time, they were told, and apparently nothing happened, because spiritual things are invisible things, and it was a spiritual judgment. But that would have begun, the 4 watches in the New Testament, they would span the 12 hours of the evening, 6 p.m. to the next 6 a.m. So at 6 p.m., in a spiritual sense, Christ came at, we would say, the first watch. But if we go to Matthew 24, and this is why no one could ever know precisely the watch that he would come. It says in Matthew 24, verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Christ coming in the clouds. It's basically the idea of a continual coming. He's coming spiritually. He's coming through the commandments. The clouds would identify with the commandments according to Numbers chapter 9. And it's the revelation of God's righteous judgment that has been going on in a continuous way since May 21, 2011. More and more information coming out of the Bible. And so Christ coming began first watch, continues second watch, third watch, fourth watch. And that is, he's coming over the entire time period, which would also fit in with a couple of other things. It's a prolonged judgment day. Yes, it's taking quite a bit of time in the world, years are passing, but as far as how God is looking at it, it's like one long day, the last day. And also, we know that there's a trumpet sound, the seventh trumpet will sound, and 1 Corinthians 15 tells us concerning that trumpet in 1 Corinthians 15, in verse 51, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment. And in a moment is a time reference like an hour or day that can be used to identify judgment day. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. I don't know why they changed the preposition. The preposition in that was used twice already in that same verse, in a moment, and in the twinkling of the eye is the same preposition, and it should have been in the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Well, the dead have not yet been raised. The trumpet, the seventh trumpet, sounded May 21, 2011, Judgment Day. And yet, how do we understand the dead have not been raised? We understand it in the sense it's a prolonged blast of the trumpet. It's like someone has put the trumpet to their mouth, took a really deep breath, and gave it a long blow, a long blast. Of course, they couldn't hold that up for 22 years, but it's a figure. It's a figure. God, we don't have to have practical understandings of these things. These things do not have to work out in a physical sense. They are to be understood in a spiritual way. And we find in Exodus 19 that the Lord speaks of a prolonged blast in the context of him coming down in judgment. Exodus 19, verse 10, and Jehovah said unto Moses, go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes and be ready against the third day. The third day would identify with Judgment Day. For the third day, Jehovah will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai, and thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall be surely put to death. There shall not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the trumpet soundeth long, they shall come up to the mount. They shall come up. That's what 1 Corinthians 15 is referring to. In a moment, in the twinkling of the eye, in the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised, raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. They will come up. They will come up. Significantly, in Exodus 19, the word trumpet is yobel, which is the word for jubilee. And so we can also, it gets into kind of a long explanation. I'll try to shorten it a little bit, but we can understand that the Jubilee of 1994 will reach its ultimate fulfillment when we have experienced salvation and deliverance from physical bodies and from Egypt of this world. When we leave the world, that will be the utmost of the Jubilee and the complete fulfillment of this second Jubilee. The first Jubilee, when Christ was born, he was the essence of the Jubilee in 7 BC. And, importantly for us to realize, Jesus was born in 7 BC, but he wrought no deliverance in 7 BC. And he lived many years walking around, growing up. And there was no deliverance of the captives in the sense of fulfilling the promise of his birth in the Jubilee year. And it's not until, even in the time of his ministry, very few people were actually saved. But when he began his ministry, he went into the temple and they delivered him the book of Isaiah. And he read from Isaiah 61 that spoke of bringing liberty to the captives and opening up the prison to them that are bound. And he said, this day is this verse fulfilled in your ears. And again, he was born, that was 29 AD. He was born in 7 BC. So that's 35 years after his birth. And he says it's fulfilled. And there's no great deliverance at that time, but it's the spiritual fulfillment of the first Jubilee was carried out when he was baptized by John, when he would go to the cross, when he was resurrected, and then on the day of Pentecost in 33 AD, 40 calendar years from his birth in the Jubilee, 39 actual years, and then 3,000 are saved, and the gospel goes forth. And really, the first Jubilee extended over the course of the whole church age. And so nobody should think, well, 1994, the Jubilee year, and we know the Bible tells us a great multitude was saved out of the Great Tribulation as a result of the latter rain being poured out over that span of about 17 years when God was saving in the Jubilee. But if biblical evidence proves correct and we come to 2033 and God takes us all out of the world, that is the ultimate fulfillment of the Jubilee and what Christ came to do. And basically that would usher in the Jubilee for all eternity. With our salvation, we would be the captives set free forever. And so there's no problem. And some people out there, sadly, and it's been going on for decades, God warns us about being quick to speak. You have to study, show yourself approved. You have to wait on the Lord for spiritual things. And so going all the way back to 1994, people started, oh, I've had enough of this. I'm going away. And then over the course of the years, as the Lord is opening up things since 1994, they're leaving, they're going away. And May 21, 2011 was the last straw for a number of them. That's it. And they're going away. And they don't understand, God doesn't operate according to our timeline. He operates in the world, in time, according to his purposes. And we can look at the first coming of Christ, and we can know when Jesus was born in that Jubilee year, people were excited. Probably everyone full of spiritual interest and holding Bible studies in houses. Oh, the Messiah has come, the Messiah has come. And then the countdown starts 6 BC, 5 BC, 4 BC, 3 BC. And well, nothing's happening. And then over in the New Testament side, 5 AD, 10 AD, 15 AD, 20 AD, it becomes like a distant memory. And those people get caught up in politics. They get caught up in the things of the world. They get caught up in other religions, or they're really going to return to the synagogue and sit under the hearing of the Pharisees. As for this whole thing, it started with a bang, this miraculous birth of a virgin and all that, but it proved to be nothing. And then God fulfills it. He fulfills it. Decades later, Christ, the essence of the Jubilee, and he's going around Judea, performing all kinds of miracles and doing all kinds of wonders. And those poor people, numbers of them died. Of course, the true elect, they would have been holding fast. They would have been waiting on the Lord. Sometimes waiting on the Lord, you really have to wait. And so here we are for a long time now, hearing these things, hearing dates like 1994, May 21, 2011, and just becoming weary and tired and ready to faint. And yet we're now approaching a time period when we're getting closer to 2033 that is following the pattern of Christ's first coming to the letter. It is a mirror image, only spaced by 2,000 years. And, if that's not encouraging, I don't know what is. And everything is in place for Christ to finally fulfill. But as far as the 4 watches, getting back to that, I would say that they are in process of being spiritually fulfilled over the course of Judgment Day. And the answer would be yes, Christ came in the first watch, he came in the second watch, and so forth. He came in all the watches over the course. And for universality, or the furthest extent of whatever is in view, he came over the whole Judgment Day period, the furthest extent of that time. And I think we would have our answer. But thank you for calling and sharing. And let's go to the next caller tonight. Welcome to our new open forum program. Please go ahead with your call.
Hey, Chris. I had a question about, I've heard you talk about when you speak about Satan taking over this world by a right of conquest.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, where are you getting that in the Bible? Where can I find that concept or the spiritual concept of that found?
Well, I don't think it's stated that way, but we can derive it. We know Genesis 3, Genesis 3, and Eve said to the serpent, well, let me start in verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Jehovah God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And we know they died. We know they died spiritually. They didn't die physically. Adam went on to live to be 930, and so Satan's lie slew them. John 8 tells us that in verse 44, ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. The lie slew Adam and Eve. It murdered them. He murdered them. He killed them with the lie in their sole existence. And they believed the lie over the truth that God had said, in the day you eat thereof, you'll surely die. And in believing the lie, they were killed. And if we go to Romans 6, in Romans 6, God gives us this principle concerning who we serve, and in the sense, how do we serve God? We believe him, we obey him. How did Adam and Eve serve Satan? They believed him, they obeyed him. And at the same time, they disbelieved God and disobeyed God. And so in Romans 6, it says in verse 12, let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey it in the lust thereof. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey? See how servants and obedience are tied. His servants ye are, to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness. That's what happened to Adam and Eve. Sin unto death. They yielded themselves servants to sin, to obey. And I can't remember exactly where it is, but we do read that Satan basically used the law, used sin to slay and to kill through it. And so we see that mankind died, and through sin and through obeying the lie, And therefore, because they obeyed the lie, they became servants to the one who spoke the lie. Man became servants to sin and to Satan. And that fits in with 2 Timothy and other verses, but 2 Timothy 2 in verse 25, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will. So sinners are in captivity. That's why the language, Isaiah 61, that Christ fulfilled in Luke 4. I am come to set you at liberty, or set the captives free, to open up the prison and release the captives. That's salvation of the sinner who was in spiritual bondage to sin, to Satan. And we know that the Bible speaks of Satan in several places in the New Testament and calls him the ruler of this world, or the prince of this world. I think in Ephesians 2, excuse me, in Ephesians 2, verse 1, and you hath he quickened, who were dead in trespasses and sins, wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. And disobedience, like Adam and Eve, disobeyed God, and they disconnected the power source, the good power source, the energy from God, energizing their soul, cut off, and instead now the word worketh in Ephesians 2:2 is the Greek word energio, and so it's according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh or energizes in the children of disobedience, and that's all related to what happened in the garden. And so putting it all together, we can conclude that Satan took dominion. Now, he's also called the ruler of this world. What does that mean? What does the word world mean? It's not talking about necessarily the geography. The world consists of people, the world of the ungodly, God makes reference to with the flood. It's the people who perished in the flood water, or in Isaiah 34, verse 1, come near ye nations to hear, and hearken ye people, let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world, and all things that come forth of it. They're all synonymous. Nations, people, earth, world. That's why God is beckoning for them to hear. And of course, the ground in China can't hear, and the ground in Russia can't hear, but the people in China and the people in Russia could hear. And so the prince of this world, the ruler of this world, the ruler of the people of the world. And when Satan was tempting Christ and showed him all the nations of the world in a moment of time and all the glory of them, that's people. That's people. And in Revelation 11, verses 15 and following, where it's judgment day, and it said the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our Lord and his Christ. That's people. That's people. It's not, of course, if you have the people, you have what the people have, and the people can have the property, they can have their feet on the ground, but Satan's more interested in the spirits of men because he's a spirit being. I don't think physical structures are has ever been what he's after. It's to rule over the spirits of men.
Got it. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that explanation.
You're welcome. Thank you for calling and sharing. And let's go to the next caller tonight. Welcome to our question and answer program. Please go ahead with your call.
Good evening, Chris and everyone. Luke 22, please.
Okay.
Verse 29 and 30.
Luke
I'll ask my
20
question after, sir.
Okay. Luke 22:29. And I appoint unto you a kingdom, as my Father hath appointed unto me, that ye may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel.
And then Revelation 3:21, please.
Okay, Revelation 3, verse 21. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and am set down with my Father in his throne.
Okay, so in the previous verses 29 and 30 of Luke, that appoint is really make or made. That's how it's always used. So I guess my question is, so this is
Is it? I have thought that this is the word testate from Hebrews.
testator, yes.
Yeah,
But
the testator.
yes, sir. Sorry. Yeah, two testators and the rest is made.
Well, this is important
Okay.
that it's the word testate from Hebrews 9, verse 15. And for this cause, he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. For a testament is of force, and that's actually the word sure, that translated elsewhere as sure. For a testament is of force or sure after men are dead, otherwise it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. Both times it's this word appoint, and that means we can substitute it. We can bring it back, and then we really scratch our heads because it says in Luke 22, verse 29, and I testate unto you a kingdom, as my Father hath testated unto me, that ye may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, the way Christ testated a kingdom, or as it says, as my Father has testated or appointed unto me, was for him to die, twice, once at the foundation of the world, once in time in history, and it's through his death that there became the gospel and heirs who could receive the inheritance. Well, now Jesus is pointing to his people. We can understand, yes, he's referring or speaking to the apostles or the disciples, but it would be the elect. And I testate unto you a kingdom. And I don't fully understand this.
But I have a question, sir, also.
But here we are in the day of judgment. And as Christ entered into death, we have entered into the condition of death. And it's after death that for the testator that one receives the inheritance. And the inheritance would be the kingdom. And so I believe that God is making another reference that we, as we go through this period of time, are in a tableau. We are testating to the same kingdom, and we will receive it. But again, it's not fully. I don't fully understand. I haven't fully worked it out, but it is. I think kind of remarkable that this is the word testator.
Okay. So my question is, but then he goes into verse 30 saying that you may sit on, thrones, like we read, and then all of Revelation 1. And then we know that the Queen of the South rises in judgment and the men of Nineveh rise in judgment. And that seems to be tied in with the kingdom coming. So I guess my true question is, the kingdom has begun, right? If judging if judging is part of this whole kingdom. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we, I mean, I never heard it before. It's so obvious. I don't know why, but we know that the Bible is, clearly spoken of Christ or God and Christ, who it's been given to Christ to execute the judgment, that in the day of judgment, he'll sit upon the judgment throne. And who sits on a throne but the king in his kingdom? And so also earlier in Luke 19, concerning a nobleman who would picture Christ, it says in verse 12, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return. And in verse 15, it came to pass that when he was returned, having received the kingdom. The word return is translated come again in Luke 10, verse 35. When I come again, I will repay thee with the Samaritan, the good Samaritan. But when he was returned, having received the kingdom, then he commanded his servants to be called, and he reckons with his servants. The Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, was a prayer that Christ taught us to pray for salvation, for the salvation of all the elect. The elect make up the kingdom, and the kingdom of elect are the same as the saints. So when we read Christ comes with 10,000s of his saints, that is telling us Christ is coming with his kingdom. And that happens spiritually May 21, 2011, because he saved everyone. And God doesn't hesitate. He didn't wait. As soon as he saved everyone, we could reckon the long suffering of our Lord is salvation. And once salvation was accomplished, no longer long suffering, he comes in wrath. And so living and dead were the 10,000 saints, all saved, allow God to begin the judgment process, shut the door because he saved everyone. Turn out the gospel light unto salvation because he saved everyone. And that starts the process of a prolonged judgment day period. And the Bible says, know ye not the saints will judge the world. Christ seated upon the judgment throne, judging with 10,000s of his saints, the completeness of saints, alive upon the earth at present, the great multitude, but we're not the total number. There's many in the ground, many who have died, or saints who not in the ground, their bodies in the ground, their spirits are with the Lord in heaven. They haven't come yet, but on the literal last day, which is a part of the overall judgment day, and therefore it will qualify as their contribution to judging the world. When God raises them up, the Queen of Sheba, the men of Nineveh, all that have been in the ground with new resurrected bodies, that will be, so to speak, the final nail in the coffin of this world and unsaved humanity. And it'll be all done. And that will be the last blow, or the last act of judgment, when all the saints are lifted up out of the world. So here, or in Luke 22, that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. If we compare with Matthew 19, we find a parallel passage. And in Matthew 19, in verse 27, it says, then answered Peter and said unto him, behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Jesus said unto them, verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory. That is a description of Judgment Day. I won't turn there, but you can see Matthew 25, verses 31 and following to 34. Christ comes and sits upon the throne of his glory. When the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel, and everyone that has forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. That's curious, this receiving 100-fold. Because Peter started out, we've forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have? And what's curious about it is in the parable of the sower, when the seed falls on the good ground, the statement is made at the end, with the good ground, it brings forth 30 and 60 or 100-fold, 100-fold. And the 100-fold, actually in Luke 8, it's just called fruit, I believe, in Luke 8. And it says that you have to be patient for it. In Luke 8, verse 15, but that on the good ground are they which in an honest and good heart, having heard the word, keep it and bring forth fruit with patience. With patience. Here is the patience of the saints. And you have need of patience after you have done the will of God. Bring forth fruit with patience. Well, given that God has saved everyone there is to be saved, and fruit in the Bible identifies with the elect, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the world, or of the earth, until he receive the early and latter rain. And after the latter rain, the great multitude saved, all the fruit is produced by the rain. And yet we who are at this period of time, kind of, it's actually been thought of as almost kind of, a diminished glory, too bad we can't be in the day of salvation. When God was saving, there was such great glory. It was so wonderful going forth with the gospel then. But now everyone's saved. Why even go out? Why even go out? And yet there's the matter of reaping, and it's 100-fold. It's 100-fold because all to be saved have been saved. And there's a need of patience. You have to wait on the fruit. wait on the fruit. But Matthew 19, it's very interesting. We are sitting. To sit means to rule. Christ is seated on the judgment throne, ruling with a rod of iron. We are judging with him. In that sense, we are ruling very humbly, and no one gets a big head about this because no one in the world would recognize we're ruling. It's only the people of God who have understanding, and we're only ruling with Christ as he opens up our eyes to understand the revelation of the righteous judgment, and then we proclaim it. We're the ones, the saints from Revelation 15, and when we look at the attire of the seven angels, it matches the attire of the description of the saints, fine white linen, or fine stumbling. So let me turn there. Revelation 15. Revelation chapter 15 says in verse 6, and the seven angels, and we know angels can be translated messengers, came out of the temple having the seven plagues, clothed in pure and white linen. Revelation 19:8. Fine white linen is the righteousness of the saints, and having their breasts girded with golden girdles. Golden girdles are priestly attire, or the girdles are priestly attire, and the elect are a royal priesthood. We're spiritual priests. What would be the function of a priest? Well, the priest is to offer the sacrifices, the judgment, and every sacrifice pointed to judgment. Well, in the day of judgment, the sacrifices are the unsaved, and I won't take the time to go to prove that, but there are several verses, Revelation 19. It speaks of, people as basically, I will go there, it's not far. Revelation 19, it says in verse 17, the marriage supper of the Lamb. At the end of verse 17, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that you may eat the flesh of kings and the flesh of captains and the flesh of mighty men, and so forth. People, it's the sacrifice of the wicked, the atonement. Well, the seven messengers are the elect due to their clothing and the fact they're priests. They are given the seven last vials full of the wrath of God. And in chapter 16, they pour the vials out. And the vial of a vial full of the wrath of God is a container. We know that much. The idea is, if you have a vial full of the wrath of God, it is something that contains the wrath of God. And as soon as we understand that, we realize, well, the only place really where we learn or find out about the wrath of God is the Bible. So the elect messengers, the saints who will judge the world, we have the Bible, and God in Revelation 16 is commanding us, pour out the seven last vials full of the wrath of God. And we do that in a program like this, with practically everything E-Bible Fellowship is teaching, with track trips, and whatever way we're able to share the truth of the Bible. We're just doing what the saints have always done. Nothing new in that regard. We're studying the Bible, we're learning truth, we're sharing the truth. It just so happens the truth is declaring the wrath of God. And and the spiritual flames are, as it were, burning up the wood, hay, stubble of the wicked people of the world, in that sense.
For another day, when you were talking about the seven, I wonder if it may be related to the seven shepherds and the eight principal. I don't even remember it, but something like that.
Yeah,
For
I
another day.
don't. Yeah,
But
well, I'm glad it's another day because
another
I
day.
don't know.
I am so grateful that we have a place to come and ask our questions, many like me. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for calling and sharing those good questions. And by the way, one last thing. I'm not. Yeah, I think we have another caller, so we will go to that caller. But Matthew 19 with the regeneration, it's very, of course, it has to be significant that in verse 28, Jesus said unto them, verily I say unto you, ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory. Well, the word regeneration is only found twice. And the other place is in Titus in chapter 3, Titus, then Philemon, Hebrews, Titus 3, and it says in verse 5, not by works of righteousness which we have done, but according to his mercy he saved us by the washing of regeneration and renewing of the Holy Ghost, which he shed on us abundantly through Jesus Christ our Savior. Now, it's making reference to the washing of regeneration. And washing has to do with baptism. But it's saying in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit upon the throne of his glory, that's Judgment Day. So it's telling us Judgment Day is a time of regeneration. And how can we understand that? Because, again, he saved us by the washing of regeneration and renewing of the Holy Ghost, which he shed on us abundantly through Jesus Christ. Well, it's the sense of baptism, like in 1 Corinthians 10, when the Lord tells us about Israel going through the sea. It says in 1 Corinthians 10, in verse 1 and 2, moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant how that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea and were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud and in the sea. They were baptized, but they went over the sea without a drop of water touching them. No water touched them. How can God say they were baptized in the sea? And the answer is, it's looking at this time period because God has turned the world into hell, and hell can be typified by bodies of water, the River Jordan, the flood in Noah's day, the Red Sea, and hell, or the grave, is also where Christ was baptized. He went down to the grave, bearing our sin at the foundation of the world, and he died and paid the penalty, and he rose without our sin because it was paid in full. He was washed in death, washed by the fires of hell, the fires of the grave. The payment was made, and we in him were baptized in that sense. But now, in the day of judgment, Jesus said to James and John and their mother, Zebedee's children, and Zebedee's wife came to Jesus, speaking about sitting at his right hand and at his left. Did it say his kingdom? Let's see if we go over there in Matthew Matthew chapter 20, was it 20? Yeah, Matthew 20, in verse 21. And he said unto her, what wilt thou? She saith unto him, grant that these my two sons may sit, the one on thy right hand and the other on the left, in thy kingdom. In thy kingdom. But Jesus answered and said, ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They say unto him, we are able. And he saith unto them, ye shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. And it's future tense. It's not pointing us back to the foundational world. It's pointing to the future. And Judgment Day at the time of this writing was future, our present time. And also this idea of kingdom and baptism. And we know when Jesus said, will you drink of the cup I will drink of? We know right away what that means. Hell, death, his experience in the garden. Will you drink? And then Christ later confirms, you will drink. You will drink in the future. Also, the baptism. Will you be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? Will you be cleansed by the fires of hell? And yes, we will, yes. And Jesus confirms, yes, you will indeed be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with, the washing of regeneration. In the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits upon his throne of glory, not the actual washing, but maybe it is. We can look at this two ways. One, it's an appearance, it's a manifestation of what happened at the foundation of the world. Two, at the end of it, of this prolonged period of time, we come out of hell and we leave these bodies behind, these corrupt, sinful bodies. They need to be washed. They need to be purged away. And that's the completion of God's salvation program. And that would be what takes place on the literal last day. So yeah, there's a whole lot of information in these scriptures concerning the elect being seated with Christ in the time of Judgment Day. But thank you for a good question. And let's go to the next person on the phone tonight. Welcome to our new open forum program. Please go ahead with your call.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. I'm looking at Matthew 13, where Jesus is doing the parable. He does the parable of the sower and also the weeds and the tares. And I've heard you talk a lot about the wheat and the tares, and how the binding them into bundles refers to as almost as if the churches are the bundles. And we say that, like, all throughout the church age, the wheat and the tares grew together. There was always wheat and tares in the church.
Right.
I'm wondering, but then when it goes on to explain, like down in 38 of 13 in Matthew, it says that the field is the world.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say the field is the church. I'm wondering how we reconcile that with that whole idea.
Yeah, well, the church is in the world. It would, and if you look at the church, it's spread out among the nations. With Israel, it was pretty much centered in the Middle East. When God had his relationship with Israel in the Old Testament, most everything we read took place right in Israel or some of the surrounding nations. But when we got to the New Testament, era, he sent the gospel into the world, and the nations were established I won't say every single nation, it may be, but practically every nation in the world. And it's if you think of the idea of there's another parable in Matthew 13. It says in verse 44, again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a treasure hid in a field, the which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field.
That field.
So it would be the same spiritual definition. The field's the world. In the world is the treasure. In this case, the treasure is the elect. It's the elect.
Right.
Scattered. We don't know who. They're everywhere. And so Christ purchased them because he purchased the world. He's the lamb slain from the foundation of the world. And we understand, you can understand the world, the definition for world in a few different ways. And it has to do with the world of God's elect. For God so loved the world, that would be the world of God's elect. There's also the world that is the nations. And so in essence, Christ purchased the whole world, all the nations, for the sake or for the reason of just getting his treasure out of the world.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I was kind of thinking that way, but it made me wonder if could there be this great worldwide false revival where literally all the world starts becoming church going, and only the people that don't go back to church are in where they're supposed to be? I think that's something that's
no, I don't. I think the Bible tells us many will come to the shut door, and they're going to come to the straight gate, which is the correct gate in the day of salvation was the straight gate, the narrow way. Normally, they go the broad way and the wide gate. In the other, we think they're parallel, but they're not. In Matthew, it says they go the broad way to the wide gate, and few go the narrow way to the straight gate. The few are the elect. In Luke 13:24 and following, many in that day, judgment day, will come to the straight gate. So I think we're seeing some evidence of that, with all the turmoil, trouble in the world. There are famous individuals, and famous individuals lead other individuals, and so it becomes more acceptable. But the church is not. That's a question, because it for a time the church would have been according to the straight gate, but now it's not. And so yes, there can be people who are thinking, well, now I'm going to do it God's way, and now I'm going to go to church. They may even go to Reformed churches where there's election, and I don't know exactly how that's going to work out.
Okay. All right. Well, I think you answered my question pretty good. That's really all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you
for calling.
Okay.
And sharing. And I'd like to thank. Good night. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight, whether listening at home or if you had a chance to call in. We're glad you did. We have come to the end of our program. Lord willing, we'll have another open forum tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we hope you can join us then. But for now, may you have a good night, and may the Lord's perfect will be done.
Thanks again for joining us for eBible Fellowship's live open forum program. You can call in with your Bible questions Monday through Friday beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and Sundays beginning at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, may the Lord's perfect will be done.